Welcome into the REVO Church podcast. I'm Jamie. I'm the host of the podcast, and this is episode 6 of the podcast. If you've been rolling with us from episode 1 to episode 6, then you know what we're doing, you know what we're about. But this is the podcast called No Easy Answers, where our goal, our mission is to look at topics, look at questions that you ask, that you face, that you have, well, they just don't have an easy answer. Maybe it's not a yes or no question. We love true and false, yes and no, A or B questions, but maybe some of the questions you have, there's no yes or no. It's yes and this, and this. And so the whole podcast is designed to help us answer those questions. And today, for the second week, I have the great Stephen Lockwood.
I thought you were going to say you have a great privilege. I didn't know I was going to be called the great.
The great Stephen
Well,
Lockwood.
that sets me up pretty high. I hope I don't let everybody down.
I talked last week about how you got irons in the fire. I got lucky enough. I struck a deal with his agent to get a second showing. But I'm excited because here's what we're going to be talking about today, Stephen. We are going to be talking about relationships, specifically marriage. And marriage when there's conflict, when there's issues, when there's problems in the relationship. We're going to be talking all about those problems and how we can, as Christians and as believers, seek to help people grow out of those issues and those conflicts.
Man, this is going to be fun and challenging because there are not always easy answers.
There is no easy answers. And so I want to start right off the top. I don't know if you know this, but and for you at home, maybe you do know this, but you've never thought about this. But I just want to make mention right away why there's conflict in a relationship, why there's issues in a marriage. I just want to set that straight right now. It's one word, 3 letters. Starts with an S and ends in N. It's
I was going to say the guy. It was
the guy, the man.
No, the guy's fault, right?
It's sin. The whole reason that there is a problem in the marriage, the whole reason there's issues is sin. Yeah. Romans 3 talks about for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Romans 6:23 talks about how the wages of sin is death. And so here's what sin does in a relationship. Sin causes friction in a relationship. Sin breaks down the fellowship and the community that you have with your spouse. Sin causes you to fall and get angry at something that maybe is not that big. Sin causes all of these different issues in life. Sin is the thing that causes every single thing to happen. I read a quote that talked about how Christian marriage is just one sinner married to another sinner seeking to take their brokenness and give God glory through it.
Pretty hard.
And is that not the truth?
Yeah. And that may seem like a simple, easy answer, but is that really what you think about most of the time when you're having conflict? Like, oh, it's because of my sin. Oh, it's because I'm a sinner. I don't think that that's what comes to mind for most people. So I know some people, when I say, oh, sin, what do they have to offer? But really, like, most of the time we're trying to fix something that is not the root issue.
Yep. I mean, I think about it like me and Casey, we've been married now for a good little bit. We're 4 years now. I got real lucky. We got married in 2020. So if I want to remember how long we've been married, I just think about the last time in the year. So it's 2024, easy. 4 years. Hey, but we've been married for 4 years. And when I think about all the problems we have, well, she doesn't have none. She's married to me. Come on. When I think about the issues and the problems that we have faced, hardly ever do I stop and think it's because of sin. Most of the time, I think it's because I didn't do these things, or she didn't do these things, or we weren't aligning, when in reality, it was the sin behind the issue. And so it sounds so basic right off the jump, but I'm just going to throw it out there. If you are married and you have sin in your life, like, I'm not talking about you tell a lie. You will tell a lie, but I'm talking about if you have like consistent, habitual, life-destroying sin in your life, that's going to cause a major issue in your marriage. That's going to cause a major bump, a major problem in your marriage.
Yeah, and if you're unrepentant, this is really hard because there are many times where I can talk to a couple and one really wants something to be resolved,
Yeah.
would do anything for it, and another person wants to continue living in the sin.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where there is the biggest divide.
Yeah.
Almost worse. No, I don't know if I'd say almost worse than the two people just, blatantly sinning, but that's almost what is more frustrating though. To understand that that's just not a good position to be in, to feel like the sin's okay, and this is where you can be brought back together. But the sin divides. Sin cuts us off from our relationship with God. But if you think about it, the solution really is to follow Jesus. In simple, like happy marriages, healthy marriages, spiritually growing marriages, ones that have something deep, more than just like, hey, finances are good, the kids are being good, life is good, but like underneath it all, like when it's really good, it's because two people are following Jesus.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. So you can see that where the problem arises when we're unrepentant and in sin.
So I would challenge everybody that's listening to this podcast. It's a challenge for myself, and it's even a challenge for you. If you are in sin, we are sinners. The Bible talks about how we sin. If you are in sin, I challenge you, stop the podcast right now and seek Jesus. First John talks about how if we confess with our mouth that he is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. That's 1 John 1:9. I would challenge you to repent, to go to Jesus, to confess your sin, go to your spouse, because your sin is A, against God, and then B, against your spouse. Go to your spouse, confess your sin, start building that relationship. Because that's the number one issue. And right off the top, I told Stephen before we recorded, I wanted to just immediately off the top hit the root cause of the problem before we start diagnosing all the extras.
Yeah, because I think that's what most of us come to a marriage conference for. You want to find a sermon on marriage. Or you want to find this. You want the tips and tricks and the hacks to it. And really none of that works with this. But maybe even right now, and it's not crazy. It's reality. Even as we're talking, the Spirit convicted me of some relational sin that I had this morning, even with my own marriage.
Yeah.
What I might have seen as maybe a slight mood or a lack of sleep, I actually I felt like the Spirit convicted me, told me exactly what that is. So when you said that, I didn't close my, I didn't stop the podcast. You told them to, but I just realized some even my own sin. This happens all the time. This happens all the time. Sin creeps in, and if you let it go, it'll just build.
Yeah, and so I think that's something so important. So right off the top, we wanted to make sure we address that, because we're going to talk about some different ways to handle some conflict in your relationship. We're going to talk about some different tips to help you grow. But if you're not repenting of your sin, if you're not turning from your sin, turning from your old life and following Jesus, none of that's going to make a difference. You can listen to 1,000 messages on marriage. You can read every single book that's ever been wrote on marriage. But if you're not repenting, you're not making a difference. So I wanted to lay that out at the top. But Stephen, you were telling me something interesting that you had read about a marriage counselor. You were telling me about this at the very top before we started. And I think it's so good. I just want to challenge you. Hey, share that with us.
Yeah, there's a marriage counselor who had been doing counseling for 40 years, and he had studied over 3,000 clients and couples that he's gone through. And really he came down to understanding what everybody fights about.
Yeah.
And so
it's the laundry not making it in the hamper.
Yeah, I mean, you probably have some ideas of what it is. It's actually what he says. What everybody is fighting about is nothing. We're not. The things are nothing. And he went on to say that it may seem really big to us because that doesn't feel like what when we're in conflict, when I'm upset or my feelings are hurt, or there's you just feel the drifting of apart. There's something going on, or words are said. It doesn't seem insignificant to me. What do you mean nothing? And what he meant by that is there is something significant, but what we are fighting about is not it.
Yep.
It's you're fighting about nothing. You're fighting about the wrong thing. You're not really getting to the root of what's going on. So most of our fights are about nothing, and we're not really getting to the significant things.
I like that. I want to take us to Song of Solomon, a book of the
Hey,
Bible.
careful what you read.
Hey, when I was in college, it was really funny. I went to Bible college, and we did this thing where we played a game called Song of Solomon, where it was a group
What?
of 18-year-old, 19-year-old boys sitting in the circle, and we read Song of Solomon out loud until one of us laughed.
Dude, my friends would used to highlight verses in the middle of a church service and like slide the Bible over to me and like make me read it. And that's a dangerous game.
It's a dangerous game, but what's beautiful is it's in the Bible. It's God gave us the Bible. He gave us His word, and Song of Solomon's in it because it's beautiful. It's meant for marriage and relationships. Honestly, I think it's a book that is far understudied, and I think if you're in a marriage, if you're in a relationship, you should pick up Song of Solomon and you should start reading it and see it. But I want to take us to this section of Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 15. This is the fiance. This is the bride speaking, and listen to what she says to us. Verse 15, she says, "Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for our vineyards are in blossom." She said, "Catch the little foxes." Now, when we think about the idea of little foxes, when we think about the problems in our life or the problems in our marriage, I think a lot of times we think about the big things. We think about that huge knockdown, dropout fight.
Yeah. We're
That's not what
chasing
she's
the
saying.
chasing the wrong animals most of the time. Now,
we're chasing the lions.
yeah, in this context, think about where they're at. Like they really did have to, be on guard against the wild beasts that were around. And this is poetry, of course, Song of Solomon. But at the same time, like the emphasis here is, hey, watch out for those little sly foxes.
Yeah.
Like they may not seem significant and damaging, but over time, these things can build up and they make something really significant. And the little things are what is going to take everything down. You're making sure that no one commits adultery. Like you're just so worried. You're just so worried about the big wild beast, as you should be, the lion and all of this. But there's so many other things that will destroy your marriage, even if you've never cheated.
Yep.
Things will take you out, and you didn't even see it coming because you weren't paying attention to the little foxes, the things that damage relationships. Ultimately, she's saying, protect us. She's asking her husband to be, please protect us by paying attention and removing whatever may harm our marriage. Whatever may harm our marriage. Watch out for those things.
Yeah, I think that's so important because clearly those big beasts, those big issues are issues. But I think so often we miss the little things. We miss the little foxes, the way we interact with our spouse when we get home from work. The way we like one of the big things in our house, Casey loves having the bed made. And I'm repenting on the podcast. I did not make the bed this morning. She usually gets up and leaves before I do. When I leave and she's at home, she'll make the bed. But she was out of the house before me this morning. I have not made the bed. And that's a little fox that is making the bed a big issue. No. Long run, it doesn't matter that the bed wasn't made. But I think what it's saying is those little things, it's not the things, it's the action behind it. Because what that's saying is, it's saying that I didn't care about her. Yeah. It's saying the pride behind it. And so I think even like with the idea of these catch the foxes, the little ones that spoil the vineyards, a vineyard's not spoiled by one fox coming in. But when we let one fox and two fox and three fox, I feel like a Dr. Seuss book, when we start letting all these foxes in, when we start letting all these little things happen that's chipping away, that's what's going to open up the floodgate for something big.
Yeah, it's the seemingly insignificant things, the little nothings. It's the bad day at work. It's the stressful car line and the traffic that you're hitting. It's the something not going right for you, or it's the frustrating parenting situation. It's these little things that over time add up. They build up. They boil up. and you haven't paid any attention to these things that they're not the biggest things, the most important things in your life, but they build up, and guess who they all end up spilling over onto?
Yep.
It's our spouse. We walk in the door with this, we're in that mood. It's really this idea of, if you have the primary thing, like you have primary priorities. Like there was a time where I wanted to make sure that something would happen.
Yeah.
I was committed to it. This stuff really matters to me. And it wasn't that I wasn't able to do the primary thing because I forgot about the primary thing or didn't think about it. But you know why I didn't do the primary thing? Because there was all these secondary and tertiary things that I didn't solve, didn't figure out. All these other little things came in the way to keep me from the primary priority for the day.
Yeah.
I didn't remember to check this off, and this thing came in, and all these things I neglected, the nothings built up, and now the big thing is a problem.
Yeah. I think about that. I mean, we think about that with other aspects of our life.
Yeah.
When we think about, oh, I'm going to go buy a house, you don't just go to the house store and get a house. Like we bought a house a couple years ago. There was no store that we went to. You know, when we bought the house, we started buying the house the day we got married. And we sat down and looked and said, we're going to put this much money each month into our savings. We bought the house when we denied going to Dunkin' Donuts, which is far superior than Starbucks, because we were taking that extra money and putting it. Yeah,
That's a hot take.
Hot take. When we were taking that money and putting it into the savings, we started buying that house when we were looking on Zillow and in our price range. We started buying that house. And so the big thing was the house, but it was all the little things
Enabled you to accomplish it.
that made it different. And so when we're thinking about a marriage and we want a strong marriage, a marriage that's growing, rooted on the word of God and is giving God all the glory, because that's what our life should be. When we think about that, it's not, here's the picture, go do it. It's all the little things that are going to make the sum of the big thing. It's the little ways. And so I think in reading this, one thing that it challenges me with is, if you're watching this, you need to understand, what are the little foxes in your life?
Yeah, you got to identify these things.
Yeah.
And maybe you should talk to your spouse about this. Maybe y'all should have a conversation about, well, you know, ask them if your mood, which seems like a little thing, is hurting the relationship. Or think about this, are you staying up so late that you don't get any sleep?
Yeah.
That's a little thing, right? But how does that impact the bigger, more important things? It's some of these things that are even little sins that may seem insignificant. The remark that cuts somebody down instead of building someone up, like you're sinning with your tongue. Like that's what the tongue is a double-edged sword like that. The snarky remarks, the ways that we fight, these things that don't seem like they're a big thing. It's just an attitude.
Yeah.
I just walked away. I just did these things, but these things, nothing. We got to identify what they are, because I'm telling you, those are the little foxes, the little sly things that will take you out. And you're just wondering, why are we not close? Why is there tension?
Yeah. And I would like to throw this in there too. I think a lot of times, and maybe I'm just speaking personally for myself, I have admitted multiple times, I am not always the best when it comes to criticism. I am not always the best at talking about problems.
Receiving or getting it?
Both.
But yeah.
I'm not good at telling people that there's a problem, and I'm not good at receiving when someone tells me there's a problem. And so that's something that personally I've had to work on. And I've took the stance, and I think this is even more so beautiful in marriage. When someone's looking at you and they're giving you like constructive criticism, or in a marriage, they're telling you, hey, here's some problems that we need to work on. They're not saying that. Casey's not coming to me and saying, here's an issue because I hate you. Here's an issue because I love you and I want to see you succeed. Because I love you and I want us to continue growing in Jesus. And so if you're like me and you struggle with receiving or even with giving, I'm starting to come to the realization that it's the most loving thing we can do. When we can offer someone the correct criticism, in a loving manner, not in a I'm striking you down, but in a I'm loving and I want to help build you up. I think that is the most loving thing you can do for somebody. because it shows me that I care about you deeply and I want to help you grow closer to Jesus.
Yeah, it's this idea of even what love is and the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of marriage and husband and wife towards each other that we see in Ephesians 5.
Yep.
But it's this it's a push to love and submit to one
Yeah.
another. And so you really do want to know how you can elevate someone, not annoy them to death, not
Yeah.
get over it. Like that's you getting in the way of them being built up, them thriving.
Yep.
And so our love and our respect towards each other is like really showing I love every aspect of you. This matters to me too. It would kind of hurt my feelings if me and my wife are going, me and Kim, almost married 20 years now.
Amen.
It would hurt my feelings if in over these 20 years there's been something I do that drives Kim crazy and she's never told me about it because it would hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Like that I'm hurting her and
Yeah.
like that'd be the wrong thing.
And you have no idea.
So I'm not talking about criticizing and hurting but don't sweep things under the rug.
Yeah.
Address issues, and I'm not saying insignificant. Some things, like if it matters to you, how about you just handle that instead of criticizing the other person? Like take some responsibility. Like
Yeah.
we get those nuances. I hope you understand that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about things that are foxes.
Yeah.
Like these things are looking like, and left alone, will slowly but surely steal all the food, all the rations, all the health that you have, and you're like, wait, where is everything?
Yeah.
How did we get here?
Yeah, I fully agree. So when I think about all of this, inevitably we're going to end up fighting. Inevitably in a relationship, there's going to be problems. You're going to let some foxes in that you should have cast away, stomped out. You're going to let some weeds grow up that you should have picked and plucked and moved forward. But inevitably there's going to be fights. There's going to be an issue. There's going to be conflict. It's one broken person married to another broken person. I don't know if y'all know this, but broken things have sharp edges, and sometimes you're going to cut each other.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, you can have that. That's free.
Right there.
And so when we think about that, and when we think about fighting, I think one of the most important things we need to remember is we need to fight fair.
Yeah. Understanding that it's inevitable, and because of who you are, we're flawed.
Yep.
And even with new marriages or married 25 years, same thing, fighting fair. And this is an opportunity to grow. If you fight fair, you're going to grow through it. Instead of sweeping it past and never handling issues, that just escalates, and the little nothings can actually turn into something better if you think about it. Like if you handle these right, like you're going to be stronger.
Yeah.
Not like, oh man, like remember this huge cut we have?
Yeah.
Like no, you'll firm up areas, and now you can keep moving forward, and you know how to handle conflict. So talking through it, fighting fair is important.
Yep.
You know, obviously we use the word fighting here because I want you to have the, like you may not physically hit somebody.
Yeah.
But you can really hit somebody.
Oh, you can
know what I mean?
verbally smack down.
You can take somebody out.
Yeah. And so when I think about that, when we're talking, I think one of the most important things when you have this issue arise, and what I think a lot of times, even early on when I got married, I struggled with is when there was an issue, I was going at Casey.
Yeah,
and that's
it's
the problem.
Me versus you, right?
Yeah,
like
I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm about to prove to you how you're wrong. And I don't think that's the case. I think instead, if you want to help build that marriage up, it's not I'm attacking you. It's I'm coming at you and we're attacking this issue.
Yeah,
I'm coming alongside you and we're identifying this problem. We're identifying this fox. And we're going to come at it together.
Yeah, let's catch this fox.
Yeah.
Let's protect ourselves from this fox.
Yeah.
And there's a us language, there's a ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
there's a unity in this. And so, that's got to be the perspective, the frame that you look through everything in this. So cutting down, hurting, all this stuff, like what you want to do is be looking at this problem. And this is going to require some conversation to really get to what the problem is. Oftentimes, surprise, it's going to be sin that we talked about at the top of this podcast. So Jamie, how do we get to like fighting fair? Let's give a few tips that we've come
Yeah.
up with here.
So I think when we're talking about fighting fair, I think one important thing is we're making the issue the bad guy, not the other person. If there is an issue that's a problem, it's not, it's not Casey that's the problem. It's the problem that's the problem. And so when we make our spouse the problem, then we're no longer fighting fair because we're not fighting for the relationship, we're fighting them. And so I think, when we're talking fighting fair, I think making the problem is the first thing.
It would help me too, knowing that if I've caused a problem, I've caused the problem.
Yeah.
But you're concerned, you have love for me and want to help me through the problem. So I have something now I can learn, like just the way that something is addressed really makes a difference, to see that you're not attacking me.
Yeah.
And I'm not really hurt by this. I'm actually kind of hurt that I've done this now. And you see how it's already beginning to change.
Yeah, that whole mind shift starts to change when we're together. Another thing when we're talking about fighting fair, I think, is remembering, hey, we're on the same team. We're on the same team. Like, I married you, I love you, I care about you. We are together. We are on the same team. If you've ever played any team sport or watched any team sport in your life, there is not a player on any team that actively tries to hurt their own team. I've never seen it. I think it's happened maybe one time in baseball.
I'm sure we can find it somewhere.
I'm sure if we go back to the 1918 series when the Chicago White Sox purposefully lost the game, gambling, or, I've never seen it in my life where a person on a team actively tries to hurt their own team. Your marriage is the same way. Y'all are a team. You're together. You need to be working together against the issue. It's not me trying to attack her because of the issue. It's me coming with my teammate, my partner, and we're attacking that issue.
Yeah, we notice problems way more than we notice things that are good and right and healthy.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't have nearly as much appreciation for things to the same level of the kind of frustrations we have. And so oftentimes we neglect all that's going right and well, and how we are one and how we've come through so much. And so we just notice this huge issue that we have, or this little something, and it just means so much to us. But that's part of just how we are as sinners. We're always kind of feeling what's wrong rather than being grateful for what isn't.
Yeah. And so I think when we start doing that, that's when we can start to move into the right phase of the fights or the arguments, because there's going to be conflict. Conflict is going to arise when, like we said, when you're a broken person and a broken person, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be problems. I think differently. She thinks differently. You think different than your spouse. I've always joked and said if the world was full of Jamies, I would hate it, because I don't think I could get along with myself. We're all different. We all think different. And so when we're talking about wanting to fight fair, I want to give you some 10 things, if you will, on like how to begin fighting fair. Because we can talk about how you need to fight fair. We can talk about how you need to identify the problem and come alongside your partner. But I think there's some steps that we need to take to start fighting fair. I think the first one is we need to start praying about the problem. We need to start praying about the problem, praying for everyone that's involved in it, praying for your spouse. I think one of the most powerful things we can do is to pray for our significant other. And so we need to start praying for the problem and the issue.
Yeah, we neglect prayer way too much.
Yeah, all the
simply
time.
in the issue. We normally jump to something that'd be out of order. We just want to blurt out the problem and say something back, snap into it. So the second tip I would provide would be to find the appropriate time and place to discuss this, to table it. Maybe it's sitting down. Maybe it's setting an appointment to say, can we talk about this problem and this going on? Or I'm feeling this. We need to discuss it. And so beginning with prayer to really, let the Spirit help you in understanding what's going on in yourself. Most of the time it's going to reveal your own sin and your own issue in this, and that it isn't the other person. So you really have some sin to address here.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of setting a time to talk about things or coming and talking about it at the appropriate time is so important, because if there's an issue, you don't want to just tag that in at 2 a.m. right as you're about to go to sleep. You want to set a time when you're awake, you have time to talk, you're not being rushed. And then I think a third thing, when you start having this conversation, we need to approach it with love and respect. We need to approach the other person with love and respect. It's that whole reminder, right, of we're attacking the problem, we're not attacking our partner. And so you come at it with this love and this respect, where we are called in the Bible to be peacemakers, people that are actively making peace, actively seeking to keep peace together. And so we need to come at it with a love and a grace of saying, hey, like, here's an issue and I want to talk about it, not how dare you do this thing, but instead come in with that grace.
Yeah, it's beautiful when you can feel loved, even when you've made a mistake,
Yeah.
even when you have done the wrong.
Yep.
And it's even greater when you can love even when you've been wronged.
Yeah.
And so that's really important. Dying to yourself, edifying the other. I would go on to say, when you're looking at the issue, another tip would be to find the common ground first. Find some things you agree about this. Is this an issue? Do we need to address this? Do we agree that it's this big of a problem? Finding the common ground in the issue and really listening to the other person, what they see in it. And I think that's just going to open up a whole lot of what you're going to. So let's just say married people, one of the popular conflicts could be about finances.
Yep.
Talk about the actual issue. Is it a problem that we're overspending? Maybe it's with in-law relationships. You're spending more time with one side of the family than the other, or maybe it is just about something with work, or someone overworking, or not taking something serious, or things around the house. Just talking about those specific things with them, and not in a fighting, attacking way, but communicating.
Yeah.
Finding that common ground.
I think another aspect of finding that common ground is listening. Listen to the other person. When they're talking, when they're sharing, so often we get in this mindset of they're saying something, so I need to build up that repertoire of bullet points I can fire back at them. And we're not hearing what they're saying. We're hearing, here's one thing they said, I've got my retort ready, and I'm just waiting on them to take a breath so I can fire it away. Instead, listen to what they're saying. Step back and actually hear them. Listen carefully to what they're saying and why they're saying it.
Yeah, make sure you understood them. It'd be like me saying, Jamie, is what I'm hearing you say is that I really need to listen to you.
Yeah.
Have I heard that? Do I understand that correctly? So just repeating even what you're hearing helps them to know that you're listening, and you want them to know that you want to understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, be the first. Be the first to acknowledge your role, your area of the problem first.
Yep.
There's a great book, When Sinners Say I Do. This is a lot about that. And understanding your role in it, how you've played a part, and what that's done to the other person can really alleviate the tension.
Yeah, I think a lot of times there is an issue, but the issue is two-sided. I've always, when there's a conflict, there's always his side, her side, and then the truth, right? Where it's somewhere in the middle. And so I think just being the first person to acknowledge, hey, like, I did this thing, or I caused this thing. Maybe you were doing this, but it's that finding that common ground, that listening, and that acknowledging of saying, hey, maybe I played a role in this somewhere.
Let me give a little insight into that too. Just from pastoral experience and not naming anybody, anything, any of that. The times where I've seen the fastest gap mended, like the biggest divides that you can't believe what these things are, maybe, or that this will never be solved. The times where I've seen that conflict resolved the fastest is when one person was talking to me and all they talked about was what they have done wrong. They weren't saying, I mean, it's two ways.
Yeah.
It's, of course, he did this or she. They didn't mention the other person one time. When there's this self-identification with, I am a problem with this, and I have responsibility, I can make progress in the solution.
Yeah.
I've seen these marriages mend very fast.
Oh yeah. And then I think, you know, the next thing, the thing, once you've talked about these issues, when you're finding that common ground, when you're listening, when you're working through it, when you're finding solutions to the problem, you're actively brainstorming together how you can help mend these fences. I think another thing you need to do, one of the last things is, man, we need to forgive each other. We need to offer that forgiveness. Jesus talks about how we are to forgive someone. And Peter asks him, like, well, Jesus, how often do I need to forgive them? 7 times? And Jesus looks and is like, no, 70 times 7. Essentially, every time they do something, you need to extend that forgiveness. And he points it back to himself of why should we offer forgiveness? Because that's what Jesus did for us. Because he forgave us. And so we need to be extending that forgiveness. And so when there is an issue arose, when there's a problem, when you're working together, when you're part of the team, your team, like for me and Casey, we're Team Spry, right? When we're part of that team, we're working together. We are then at the end of it, we're going to forgive each other.
Yeah. A good definition of forgiveness is telling the other person, I will never hold this against you anymore. Like the debt's paid. Like you acknowledge, like, it's good. I'm not bringing this up anymore. Like, it's been forgiven.
That's
like,
good.
That frees somebody to now make some progress, move forward. And then you get the time of making up, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, babe. I know that was embarrassing.
So I think, and then lastly, just to kind of capstone this whole episode is this: if there is issues or problems, if there's foxes that you're chasing that you just can't seem to face on your own, the last thing is, man, seek out some trusted believer, whether it's a pastor, whether it's Pastor Steven, or it's me, or it's Pastor Matthew, or Pastor Nathan, or Pastor Josh, or someone that is in the congregation, an R group leader that is a believer that can really speak in and help share that biblical wisdom and help you communicate and grow. Because at the end of the day, the whole goal is not to win an argument. The goal is not they have a conflict and I'm going to win. The goal is we're going to come together and we're going to grow deeper in ourselves and deeper in growing towards Jesus. And so if there is those problems, go to someone and have them help speak in and help them, or have them help you, really handle those problems.
Yeah. Getting other people involved that love and care for you, that really have something to offer in the situation, maybe somebody that has experience in that area, is super helpful to you both, and a trusted person that can go, that you both can go to. But marriage is a beautiful thing. Yeah. And it's worth fighting for. It's worth working through these issues to not just say, oh, well, we've been married all this time and we're staying together for the kids, or we have our routine, we're good roommates. There's so much more beauty in it, of holy matrimony, of what that looks like to resemble the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so, like, address these conflicts. Don't let the sin creep up and overtake and just represent the wrong thing. Yeah, I think, I think we talked about it at the beginning, but every issue is going to come back to a sin problem. And so if there's sin, hey, repent of your sin, seek Jesus, seek other friends, seek other pastors or believers that can help you grow. But hey, this podcast is titled No Easy Answers, because there's going to be problems that are going to arise. There's going to be conflicts that arise that there is no easy answer. So if this resonates with you, if you've been struggling with a relationship with your spouse, significant other, if y'all been having those struggles and you can't find a solution, man, I know my heart, I know Pastor Steven's heart is that you wouldn't just give up on it, but that you would seek out seek out us or someone you trust that would be able to come in and help you mend those bridges, mend those cracks. But this has been the REVO Church podcast. This has been episode 6 of No Easy Answers, where we dove into just marriage and all the conflicts. But we'll see you next time.
Time to get moving. All right, here we go. We're gonna start.
Come on, do it.